first episode, and just want to go over a quick mission statement and our podcast goals here. We are not safe for work Star Wars podcast, so if you have small children, don't blast this. But we are going to do. We are going to be going into every Star Wars topic, covering new and old media, as breaking down new things as they come out, pop culture influences, poking fun at the quirks involved in Star Wars. And I'm joined with the Obi to my Annie. Siebes, how you doing today?
Hello there, Broda. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, just casually sitting down, talking Star Wars. We're about to break down quite possibly the greatest Star Wars film of all time.
Let's hear about it. This is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one to get through.
Yeah, everybody, we are going in chronological order of the Skywalker saga, so naturally we starting off with The Phantom Menace.
This is the order you came out in.
It's not the order that came out in. No.
This makes more sense in the form of a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to be able to expand on themes as we go, but for consistency's sake, we're definitely starting with what I would say might be one of the most controversial Star Wars films of all time.
I think that's a safe bet, Mike. 1999, the whole world was on pins and needles waiting for this one. Something like this really had never been done before in movies. Where
CGI industrial revolution.
Just the idea of taking one of the greatest movie villains of all time and then doing a prequel series, like not even just one movie, like a here's how we got here type deal. Totally crazy, revolutionary idea. So it was not received with the same enthusiasm.
To cast the most iconic villain of all time as a 9-year-old child, who would you pick?
Jake Lloyd, to be honest.
Man, I mean, Jake Lloyd is really good at the yippies. And
yippee!
Also, we're not here to make fun of Jake Lloyd. I think he's taken enough flack.
He's had a rough life.
Yeah, I think that
this movie is a big contributor to that.
Hindsight's 20/20, but I do think that this movie maybe would have done a little better if you had not made Anakin 9 years old. Maybe bump up the arguably, maybe bump up the years a little bit.
Arguably, it was kind of cool when this movie came out. Again, this is 1999. We were both 6.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of felt like I could be Darth Vader, which I don't think was the intention or the takeaway that we were supposed to walk away with.
Yeah,
but
I actually saw this movie for the first time on VHS.
Didn't
even see it in theaters.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My parents brought it home.
I was 6. Very big birthday for me. My grandma and my godmother took me to a double feature that day. We saw The Phantom Menace and we saw Tarzan. Shout out to Phil Collins. He was not in Star Wars, but he made a great movie for our soundtrack.
Tarzan had a bigger impact on your childhood, right?
Yes. Yeah, I relate more to Tarzan. I also grew up in the jungle without shirts most of the time.
All right, I guess we're going to dive into some of the plot here. Quick, not crazy like plot analysis, but we do want to break down some things here as we go.
Yeah, let's hit on it, man. Let's talk about it. Opening of the movie.
All right, so, I mean, the Jedi are tasked with going to the Trade Federation, who are blockading Naboo. And they get onto the ship, and Obi-Wan senses something elusive, which, we don't know at the time, but I'm pretty sure at that point and in that moment, he's sensing Darth Maul and the Rise of the Sith.
Darth Maul is terrifying and awesome at the same time. Very... From the beginning, right, this movie's it was weird. It felt like they were trying to aim for a younger generation of Star Wars fans. Like, I think... I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty positive this movie was made with a child audience in mind.
Absolutely.
And then the whole movie starts with them trying to negotiate a trade. I'll be completely honest. This rewatch of this movie was the first time I really kind of had any idea of like what was actually going on with the plot. So I don't feel confident that the children were following this very well.
I feel like the plot was meant for adults.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie was a big giant toy advertisement,
yes.
Which isn't a bad thing because I love my Phantom Menace toys.
There you go, man. You're launching a new franchise. You do what you can, right?
Yeah.
So they're on the ship to negotiate some kind of trade blockade. Their total kind of immediately jumping to murder of these Jedi Knights.
Yeah, they just assume that shit's gone south.
They are not interested in negotiating whatsoever.
Yeah.
Then they receive they broadcast to a mysterious figure.
I wonder who that could be.
Who it does instruct them to go ahead and let's kill those knights.
I mean, I don't know about you, but that chin looks really familiar.
It's a familiar butt chin.
Yeah.
That only few people in this world have. I'm pretty sure it was Gerard Butler.
Probably.
No.
Surprised it didn't have a beard, but
no. So so they of course are immediately met with droid resistance. It's the first time we kind of see battle droids in the Star Wars universe.
And I think it's also the first time we really see Jedi and their like warrior type battle prowess. I think they're portrayed to us in the original trilogy as monks, people who grew up with Star Wars kind of get that vibe. I mean, the time that those films were made, there wasn't as much like action and stunts as there. Not to say that there weren't, but it just wasn't as intense. And this time around, you really get introduced to like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are just mowing down these battle droids,
mowing them down
without remorse.
It's pretty cool. It is cool to see, right? That's kind of one thing that's present in this movie, that whether it be technology or by story design, in the original trilogy, you don't see a lot of lightsaber fighting. The iconic scene in the old trilogy with the lightsaber battles is probably Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, which is a very kind of jagged, like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
and you see, like, choreographed actual, like, lightsaber fighting in this movie, which is very cool. We'll get to that more towards the end. But you do get to see the Jedi in action for the first time, which is very cool, especially for young children who are kind of being reintroduced to the franchise.
And I almost feel like for us, like, it was more of like a natural extension of like feel like I started forming memories at the age of 4. Like, I can't go back to a time where I didn't know that Darth Vader was Luke's father. So when you go from being 4 and you're like actually remembering like these first 3 films, and then the Phantom Menace comes out 2 years later, you're like, I mean, in the kid equivalent of holy shit, did this take a jump in quality?
Yeah.
Even though like the story implications are just not the same.
Right. So, the whole Trade Federation thing is as kind of confusing as that is. I do agree. This is for a child who's watching this. This is like a very cool kind of rebirth of the whole franchise for the youngins. So they escape. Basically, they don't really show it, but they escape on a ship down in Naboo. It's the planet that the Trade Federation's right above, and they immediately meet Jar Jar Binks, who is a bumbling, stumbling idiot. We learn he briefly takes them to Gungan City,
and I think Qui-Gon Force or Jedi mind tricks Boss Nass.
He does. He does. That was nice, man. That was the first. That was the first time watching that I had a thought. When someone's being on the receiving end of a Jedi mind trick, like if I did it to you right now, if there were other people in this room, would they just kind of be like, what the fuck is going on? Or would they be like, hey, that guy literally just waved his hand?
Those people are complicit, and they just let shit happen.
See something, say something. Completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And so they eventually run into the Queen or her decoy. It's a little fun cup game going on the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, I sure couldn't tell at 6 years old.
I know. It is. It's still kind of shocking looking back how similar Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman are appearance-wise. They keep you guessing. So they take off with the Queen and her kind of little posse to escape the
Trade Federation blockade.
The blockade.
So just for people who have always questioned, why can't it's a planet, you should be able to escape from all sides. Well, in Star Wars, there are hyperspace lanes, which make the blockades somewhat legitimate. Because if you're stopping their one lane to leave, they can't get out. So there you go, a little bit of Star Wars knowledge.
And planets are round, for anyone who may not...
we don't have any
who may
flat
not know.
Nabooers in this podcast.
I don't. Not yet. We'll see. We'll see how I feel by the end of it. I don't know. I could be convinced. They're escaping the blockade. The ship gets shot down. Where does it land, Mike? What's the one planet in the Star Wars universe that it might land?
They just can't stop going back to this place.
Can't stop going to
Tatooine. Shout out
Tatooine.
to the introduction of R2 into this prequel trilogy while the ship's getting attacked.
Yeah, he does. He does play a big part in pretty much every major event that happens ever.
And he just don't tell nobody.
No,
Nope.
he's a real one. Ship crashes on Tatooine. Well, the hyperdrive's damaged, so they have to venture out to find parts to fix it. They stumble into a repair shop where we meet Watto, who is very clear that the only thing that works on him is money. Watto's shop, something else important happens.
Oh, a
We
9-year-old hits on a 14-year-old.
Yeah, that's a
Jake
problematic
Lloyd got game,
relationship. Yeah, he's just like, oh, you an angel? Which I'm going to try. It's not going to work in my late 20s. I don't think that line's going to work.
Pickup line.
I don't know. We'll see. This is the first time we meet young Anakin Skywalker, which was pointed out in a couple reviews we watched. Something I never thought about, but he is, I guess, technically the main character of this movie.
Yeah.
And he shows up
45 minutes
very,
late.
very late in the movie.
I mean, Luke shows up late in A New Hope, but it's not like that.
Yeah.
You literally feel like you spent a lot of time with the other characters in the Phantom Menace before he even shows up.
It's a lot of exposition, sort of, but it's also just like a lot of chaos that happens beforehand.
Yeah, although it's funny, I would say the entire second act is about him. It's
Absolutely
really his journey. I mean, he competes in the pod race because they need to get money for the parts. Anakin and his mother are slaves.
Yes.
They have chips in them that will explode if they just leave. So,
Which I did not know about until you were telling me about that. Because, of course, me being a genius watching this, I was thinking, hold on a second there, guy. You got room for Shmi on that ship. Why don't you just take her and, I know they can't be together. Why don't you just dump her off at a different planet? Apparently she'd explode.
yeah,
That's intense.
It's like they really quickly go over a couple lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that, man. That's pretty jacked up.
Hey, man, the Hutts are vicious. They're gangsters.
The one thing that I kind of noticed for the first time is you meet Anakin very briefly, and then they're just kind of walking around Tatooine with the little youngin that they just met randomly at the repair shop. All of a sudden, there's a dust storm that forces everyone to go back to Anakin's house for dinner. I never thought about this before, but that dust storm definitely is like some kind of act of whatever God
the Force
exists.
Right. It's
this
like
universe.
the will of the Force is pushing these characters down.
Because otherwise,
Certain path.
nothing else happens. They just are like, all right, see you later. And they go and eventually fix their ship and move on. And who knows what happens. That dust storm's pretty key, man.
It's important. I mean, it is like a driving force, obviously, plot, you know. They gotta
Sure.
get them there
It's a little bit of a
somehow,
MacGuffin.
build
But
their relationship. I mean, Anakin does save Jar Jar from becoming orange goo.
Orange Goo, Gatorade's new product.
That's right.
Yeah. So they go to Anakin's house. They have a nice little conversation about freeing the slaves and killing Jedi, which is kind of ironic.
It is ironic. It's
sad.
It's so heavily foreshadowed Qui-Gon's death that I couldn't see anything on the screen. It was just black.
Yes. That was intense. You do get a couple glimpses of Anakin as a child, which is one thing that I think is cool with this movie, is you can see his innate goodness.
Yeah, his compassion is, I mean, just to compare it to like real world, you see, when you see things through a child's lens, you know, they don't have such a complex and like a cynical view of the world.
Right.
So, you know, you very much get the best out of him from an emotional standpoint in this movie.
Right. You get a couple key lines like the thing he says about if nobody helped each other in the world sucks. Stuff like that. I'm not a slave, I'm a person.
Yeah.
Was actually like one of the more well-delivered lines in that movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would say that, you know, he's 9, he's doing his best, but
Yeah.
the line is so, it just extremely
It
important.
hits.
It does
hits.
hit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see you can see who he is. He's not an evil being at this point. He's a child. And it was just kind of cool to think of Darth Vader in that way. Before he starts just killing just everyone and a bunch of 9-year-olds.
In this movie, believe it or not.
It does. He gets a bloodlust towards the tail end.
They don't highlight it, but it's there. So we eventually get to the point where Watto has the part for the ship. He needs to the Jedi and the Queen need to get this part to get off the planet, and the only way to get it is to win money in the pod race because Republic credits will not do on Tatooine.
No, they won't.
So Anakin gets entered into the race through some sort of manipulation with Watto. He essentially will either end up with the ship that they got there on or the money from winning the race. It's a win-win situation.
Can't lose.
Yeah.
A risk-free bet,
Yep.
if you know what I'm saying. Which brings us to probably either the coolest or the second coolest part of the whole movie.
Absolutely.
Which is the pod race.
Yes.
I almost did it again. I almost said the podcast because I'm super vain and I just want to talk about myself. But pod racing is introduced. This is the first time in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, this is a huge world-building moment for Star Wars. You have a lot of old aliens introducing the original trilogy. If this is your first Star Wars movie, you are getting a smorgasbord of different aliens. Not to mention, you're getting just pod racing is this whole element. You're seeing civilization, not just the Empire and the Rebels.
They bring sports,
yeah,
into Star Wars.
I mean, who doesn't love sports?
Which is awesome. This is it's a really cool scene.
I know. I said who doesn't love sports, but there's probably gonna be a lot of people listening to this that just don't. That's true. Yeah, the gap is probably pretty significant. But we do, so you can.
But we do, so whatever, guys. One thing I have to say is it seems like pod racing is a pretty heavily involved. It's a sport that a lot of people bet on, and I like that a lot. I work in the sports gambling industry, and it seems like, based on a few side conversations in this movie, Sebulba is a heavy favorite, and he just never loses. We learn later that he just cheats all the time. But people bet on this, and if Sebulba is a lifetime never lost, there's no money to really be won on this.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand.
Something shady's going on.
He puts a every on Sebulba, to quote Watto.
You got to check those huts because they're up to something.
They are. It's like they got some
in there.
Some back
not credits for sure because
no credits.
They will not do good here.
We got to plug a 1-800-GAMBLER. I don't condone any
responsible gambling. Yeah. One thing that was cool was that you get a lot of quirky characters here, which eventually led to a spin-off video game for the Nintendo 64, which was absolutely incredible, which was Star Wars Pod Racer.
Extremely fun. If you haven't played it, I'd recommend going to find
sunk a lot of hours into that. The race is exciting. It's cool. There's a lot of explosions.
Death.
A lot of people die. What is the mortality rate?
Die. Only 2 people finish the race.
2 people finish the race.
And I think over half of them die.
I'm pretty sure. Why would anyone do this? There's Tusken Raiders camping out, sniping people. It's just lawless, man. You got engines flying. None of these pods are well made, too, because they all are damaged at some point.
It's true. Every single one of them catches fire or blows up.
It's insane. And all of Tatooine seems to be there to watch for a half-mile stretch of the track.
Yeah. I mean, they got screens.
They do have screens. I can't talk because I was big into NASCAR and I used to go to Pocono every year.
Yeah, but there they just turn left. Here you got all sorts of
sometimes you go skyborne. Sometimes you got to avoid getting sniped in the head.
Sometimes you get killed by a stalactite or a stalagmite. I don't know which one points up or down.
Nice, dude. Geology.
I'm uneducated.
That's why you turn to podcasting, pal.
Yeah, you said the wrong thing though. It's
it's the best sound death that happens in that movie. Anakin wins the pod race in very dramatic fashion, beating Sebulba. Pooju! On the very last lap there. So he has won his freedom. They have to have a very difficult conversation when they... Actually, it's really not much of a conversation.
Qui-Gon just kind of makes Watto his bitch.
Oh, I meant more when they get back to Anakin's home.
Qui-Gon just kind of makes Shmi his bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
He kind of just Anakin, you're free now. And she's like, okay, that's great. And it's not... It's a weird
My place
position
is here to suffer
put.
in the sand.
It's a weird...
With sand people.
I'm not talking about sand. That's next episode. That's a tough spot to put a mother in. It's just like, hey, your kid's free, and
but she also knows her life will be better off.
Sure.
Not on Tatooine.
Not exploding when he tries to leave the planet.
Exactly.
I do like when Qui-Gon goes to claim his winnings from Watto. Watto just doesn't want to pay up, and then he suggests that he'll go to the Hutts and see what they think about it.
Which Watto immediately backs down
which
from.
To me means that there is some kind of honor among thieves there, and I guess gambling is taken very, very seriously. Yeah. And if you don't pay up, you're getting hutted or
bounty hutted.
Boom, love it. I did love Jabba's brief appearance in this movie.
Jabba kicks like an animal off the ledge.
PETA.
This guy's a piece of shit.
PETA's not about that.
He's just letting Kawaki and monkey lizards get killed.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, dude.
Unreal, man. Fucking nerds. So, time to go, Annie. Where are we going, Mike?
Oh, we got to take him back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant.
Which, this part was actually pretty cool for me, seeing the Jedi Council for the first time.
Yeah, I think, I definitely didn't expect to see Yoda, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was a surprise for a lot of people also.
But you also get introduced to Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, which is phenomenal. I mean, he doesn't love Samuel L. Jackson.
You heard when these movies were coming out, and again, this is our context as kids, but right. Samuel L. Jackson's in the new Star Wars movie, which to adults probably was pretty awesome. And then Sam Jackson just kind of, I mean, you learn this more throughout the other movies, but he's kind of like the strong will, kind of take no shit street fighter Jedi. Like, he gets shit done. Like, he's a general.
Oh,
like,
for sure. It's funny. He uses the line, "We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers," in Attack of the Clones. And if anyone was meant to be a general in just Star Wars in general, like, has that demeanor.
If you Google, this is such a lame thing to do, but I'm not going to act like I'm above it. If you Google Mace Windu, if you Google any Jedi, it gives you like a brief blip about like what they are. Every time you Google Mace Windu, it's like he was known as Master Swords. Like, that's like the first thing that comes up. So
shout out Wikipedia.
He gets shit done. He also has one of my favorite lines, like, of just sheer obliviousness that shows that the Jedi Council is stupid. When he's like, "Well, if the Sith returned, we would know about it." And it's like,
would you though?
Come on, man! Like, you guys aren't aware of anything. Anytime
they have
something,
no idea what's going on.
Anytime anything of like consequence happens, they're always like, we need to meditate on this.
Yeah, and I think meditate is just shorthand for dick around in that room in a circle.
I don't know. I don't want to know what goes on in there, man. So they debate training young Master Anakin,
who clearly has a large affinity for the Force.
A ship.
A cup.
A cup. A ship.
A speeder.
It's just a really weird iPad that made.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, we already made the 3D model for the Naboo starfighter. We'll put that in the iPad."
No. So
shout out to iPads and Star Wars before they were real.
And I hate to do this because we're recapping the movie, but it feels like a lot of the next half hour is just completely inconsequential to the movie.
Oh, you say that, but from a plot standpoint, it's so important. But from a moviegoer standpoint, it's the last thing you want to see.
Yeah.
Like, they go in there and, essentially Palpatine, who is from Naboo, sent the Trade Federation there to attack his home planet just to garner a sympathy vote to give him more control.
That's
of the
right.
Republic.
I
just gave you the Cliff Notes version of what that entire half hour is about.
Two things from. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but two things here. The coolest part, I think, for me at least, about these whole prequel movies is actually not seeing Anakin become Darth Vader. For me, it's actually watching Palpatine manipulate this entire process. He's the main villain, but he's a background character kind of in this movie.
Yeah.
He obviously comes more to prominence, but it's so awesome watching him manipulate his way from, like, using the Republic as a tool, using, like, his apprentices. Love it. Love that entirely. Point two, I have an incredible problem with the Galactic Republic because Queen Amidala, literally just in the middle of, like, a council meeting was like, "I vote we get a new chancellor." And then it just like was like, all right, it's election time. Like what kind of stable democracy is that?
The vote and no confidence. You would think they'd have one every freaking day. I mean, I know we would in America if we could.
Yeah,
I mean, just essentially an impeachment that just straight up works. I don't know if
there's no process.
He just like they're like, oh, like these 3 senators are up for election. Spoiler alert: Palpatine's one of them.
My favorite part was Chancellor Valorum's just like pouty, sad face. He just sat down. He was just like shocked that someone raised that. Chancellor Valorum was just like a plastic cardboard placeholder. Like he was pretty lame.
Yeah.
But just the fact that she was like, I call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, and then it was like it was done.
Yeah, they were ready to
go.
People were fed up.
So that does happen. They come back. Palpatine's feeling himself.
Yeah, he doesn't want the Queen to leave because it's going to ruin his plans. So
I have no idea what would happen if something would have fallen apart or whatever it says. It's like his feigned fake attachment.
Like empathy or whatever.
Yeah.
But so the Queen is like, nah, fuck this. I talked to Jar Jar and we're trying to go save our planet. So they leave. And the Jedi Council tells Qui-Gon, hey, you know that boy you want to train? You can't. And
not happening, pal.
You got to go help out the Naboo.
The Naboo. That bothers me, too, that they call it the Naboo instead of just Naboo. Yeah. But, hey, little things, man. They go back to Naboo, which is about to be jacked up by the Trade Federation.
Yeah, it's completely in military occupation from the Trade Federation.
Yeah. Who
are there to essentially usurp power. All the people are suffering. They don't ever really go into what is happening, but I'm assuming it has something to do with the import of food.
They don't. I don't think you see a single citizen from Naboo this entire movie, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Every single person represented is a soldier or a political figure from Naboo.
It's wild, right?
And then if they're not, they're Gungans until the very end of the movie.
Yeah. It's kind of insane.
But I think people are starving or something.
Yeah, or some... it doesn't matter.
They're dying. You must contact me.
You must contact me.
Shout out to C.O. Bibble.
Yeah, that guy. Captain Pointybeard.
Captain Pointybeard.
They realize they're not going to win this fight on their own. They need some help from the underwater people.
Yeah, the Gungans.
The Gungans.
So Jar Jar leads them to a secret meeting place where they pretty much beg the Gungans for help.
Which was in a forest.
It wasn't a forest.
On the upside. They only live on... Like, I can't believe that was a secret meeting place that no one ever discovered.
I mean, where would you assume underwater people go? Probably somewhere else underwater.
Oh, my God. The planet Gore. Maybe. I don't know. So it's clear that they're going to need Gungan help to fight this life or death battle against the Trade Federation's droid army. So Keira Knightley / Natalie Portman. Absolute dastardly political move. I love it. She sucks up to Boss Nass, saying that we need you. In fact, no, we beg you.
Yeah.
They all take a knee. Swear to God, if the national anthem was playing, I would lose my mind. Just kidding, folks. It works. The Gungans...
Hold on. Our viewers need to know that we're not ignorant.
Yes, that is not a stance that I agree with.
No. The stance we don't agree with is that kneeling during the national anthem is okay, is what we're trying to say.
Yes. Yes. Or if you're trying to enlist the Gungan armies.
True.
To your cause. So now their army is, I don't know if it's double, but there's Gungans now.
There's lots of Gungans. They're ready to,
It definitely felt like it was like, we need bodies to throw in front of these guys.
1,000%. And so the Gungan army is used as a decoy to draw away the Trade Federation.
Yes. Question their battle tactics. Like you pointed out, they marched out of the forest.
Which is covered in fog. To meet the droid army on basically
an open field. A Windows 98 save screen. Just rolling fields.
I didn't really make that connection until just now when you said it.
Yeah.
Wow, talk about something I can't unsee.
They had cover, and they were like, oh, we're going to meet you right out here. Giant bubble shields and all.
Which are cool.
Very cool.
They make cool noises, too.
That battle is a disaster for the Gungans. It's unorganized. The shields get dropped.
Jar Jar's made a general.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I didn't. Thank you for
no reason whatsoever.
He's a Bombard general.
And they're
so
they entrust a bumbling, goofy idiot who they won't even let into their
the city.
In fact, when he shows up like 2 hours before this, the Gungans are terrified that he's even there.
Yeah, which is like, what did he do?
I don't know.
I need to know. I need to know more backstory on that. Jar Jar is a general, probably a 5-star general. I don't know that for sure. Watching the movie, he's probably not. He's probably stripped of his generalhood right away. While all this is going on, there's of course a battle in the city of the royal city of Theed on Naboo. I guess it's not really a battle, but the queen and her strike team are basically going to take back the throne.
Yeah, they're infiltrating to try and capture Nute Gunray.
And then, Mike, let's talk about it. The unveil of the most anticipated character in this movie.
Yeah, so, I mean, we actually met we didn't even go over Darth Maul stopping them on Tatooine for a brief moment. But, you get a small glimpse there. Sorry, guys. Try not to jump around, but...
You see him a little bit.
You see him a little bit. And then we get the ultimate reveal. He takes off his cloak, turns on one side of his lightsaber, and then he turns on another.
Man, was that... When you're like 6 watching that movie, wasn't that like the coolest when you're like, oh my God, a lightsaber can have two sides?
I didn't know my dick could shoot blanks, but it did. That
yeah,
day.
Man.
When I saw that, I was like, whoa.
Your first boner?
My first boner.
Mine was probably Titanic when Rose got naked, but that's cool too. I mean, they're kind of the same thing. But he does the whole sideways, and then you're like, wait for it. Oh, it's two-sided. And like you said, you did make a comment when we were watching the movie. They showed that in...
So much marketing material was heavily based around the fact that Darth Maul had a double-sided lightsaber, but we were children, so...
Can you imagine if when they were putting the trailer together for Empire, it just led with, I am your father.
That's essentially what happened here. Maybe.
Suck.
I don't know. It's just...
I don't know if it's quite the same, but...
Don't get me wrong. It's extremely cool looking, but yeah.
Oh, it's great.
I'm glad that I didn't really have that ruined for me because I was a child.
I've always made the connection. It's super cool the first time you see Darth Maul when... You see him a couple times earlier in the movie, but you can tell he's just got like a red face. He's got all these tattoos. He's got like yellow eyes. He genuinely just looks evil, and it's
terrifying.
Awesome. Then he takes his hood off, and he's got, like, spiked horns and everything. He's got, like, sharp shark teeth. He's an awesome villain with not a lot of depth to him, but he's just a cool, like, he plays the role of just, like, a bad guy and, like a surface-level bad guy in this movie.
Iconic for his imagery.
Yeah, so we get to see Darth Maul fighting very acrobatically. And let's talk about that. What happens, they get cut off. Amidala and her crew go to take back the throne room. Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan are left to deal
with
Mr. Maul.
As Anakin flies out of the hangar in a Naboo starfighter.
Yes.
So, in A New Hope, you have one conflict in the third act. The Death Star run. In Empire Strikes Back.
The Death Star.
In Empire Strikes Back, you have Luke versus Vader. And everyone trying to escape Bespin.
Yes.
In Return of the Jedi, you have 3 things in the third act of the film. Vader, Luke, the Emperor fighting each other, the ground assault on Endor, and the space battle outside the Death Star. 3 things.
3 things. Usually involving a Death Star.
Right. Episode 1. There are 4 things going on in the third act of this film. The final climax, you have the Gungans fighting their battle, the Queen trying to usurp or get her throne back.
Oh,
the
easy
dual
there,
fates, and Anakin going up into space to try and take out the Trade Federation control ship.
It's a just fucking jumble.
There's
it's
so
all
many
over the place.
things going on.
Yeah.
I think this is... Look, don't get me wrong. I love the dual fates. Anything to do with this lightsaber battle, I'm a huge fan. However, there's way too much other things going on right now.
There is. Dual fates, I think we both agree, is the best. I said earlier the pod race, but the dual fates is the best part of this movie, in my opinion at least. The usurper. Now you got me saying usurper. I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones. The taking back of the throne room. Could do without that probably. And the Gungan battle is fun, but the Gungans are useless basically. They just a bunch of them get killed.
Cannon fodder. It's kind of sad actually.
The only reason they win, they're captured at the end. They're literally all about to be, I don't know if executed or what's going to happen to them, but Anakin blows up the Trade Federation's ship, seemingly by mistake.
Where his lust for blood begins.
Where a lot of people were on that ship. A lot of Trade Federation people were on that ship. And Anakin's responsible for the death of all of them. And as he's leaving, that cold-blooded killer just goes, yippee!
No, I believe his exact lines are, now this is pod racing.
Yeah. Sick. Absolutely sick. He just slaughtered a whole corporation, basically.
Yeah, but he saved all the Gungans.
He did save the Gungans. I don't know if I would trade. I don't know if I would make a one-for-one trade, but I'm not sure. That is balance. Yeah, that is balance. So, yeah, the Duel of Fates, what happens is that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon get separated in those little force field things, and Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon Jinn.
He guts him.
A little knock to the face, and then he stabs him in the stomach, in the tum-tum.
And Obi-Wan lets out a very convincing no.
He does. It's one of the better ones in the saga.
I agree. It's right up there with Luke finding out that Darth Vader's
yes, Darth Vader's no in Revenge of the Sith is the worst.
Yeah, and they dub it into Return of the Jedi if you haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah. Ugh, God.
One quick note I want to make about Obi-Wan's getting ready to go out and avenge his master. Revenge is not the Jedi way, and you can tell Obi-Wan's rage is clearly present.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But it's funny because his rage is present, and as a Jedi, it totally throws him off balance. Something that completely eluded me as a 6-year-old, but now with all the context of Star Wars, I'm like, oh, that's why he almost gets kicked down a hole.
Yeah. The only problem I have with this scene, and I mentioned it here, and I'm probably about to get schooled here, but this is where this class is in session, baby. Darth Maul is standing over Obi-Wan, who leaps over him. And then Darth Maul doesn't even really defend himself. He kind of watches him jump up over his head, stands there with his guard down, and gets cut in half.
Okay. So Obi-Wan, who's defenseless, down his hole, looks up to his master, completely gutted by Darth Maul. And in that moment, he has compassion for his master who's just fallen, and that balances him. It allows him to think more clearly, act as a Jedi. A lot of people are like, oh, Darth Maul had the high ground.
Yeah,
okay,
a lot of people.
Let me break this down for you, why Obi-Wan says, don't try it in Episode 3. It's because he's relived this significant moment, the first time Jedi have fought a Sith in centuries, over and over in his head. By that time in Revenge of the Sith, he knows what's going down. If he knows how to defend himself, because Maul didn't. So...
Clearly, because you watched him jump over his head and turned around and got cut in half.
Essentially.
It was pretty lame. But that's that. And Qui-Gon has a dying wish. He says, train the boy. Well, I guess Qui-Gon a really tender little rub on the cheek with his one finger.
I thought they were going to kiss.
They should have, honestly. That would have been a huge statement in 1999.
It would have.
If they did that.
It would have been like the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yeah. Whoa. That'd be crazy. He's dead. So they go to Qui-Gon's funeral. This is when they have just the look, here's what's happening.
Yeah. Do you know like those old wiffle ball bats, the big red ones?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they take that size bat.
Oh, yeah.
And they hit you over the head with the fact that Palpatine is the true.
Don't have the exact phrase in front of me, but it's like Yoda's like, oh, well, there's always, this is where they talk about the rule of two. There's always 2, 1 apprentice, 1 master, no more, no less. And then
Mace Windu says, well, which one did we kill?
Sam Jackson piles on.
Or the apprentice?
And then the camera immediately pans over to Palpatine standing there.
And he's like smirking like a
and
bad guy.
He's the Phantom Menace.
Oh.
When I was 6, I didn't understand. Before the movie came out, I had no idea what was going on. I just saw a picture of Watto.
But wait, that's the chin. That's the chin we talked about earlier.
I thought Watto was the Phantom Menace.
Oh my god.
I know. Based on he looks scary in the commercials.
Right.
So that was that.
So, very sad. Obi-Wan tells him, I've been instructed by the council I can train you. And that's great.
That's cool, man. And so we have the table set for the rest of the Skywalker saga.
Correct. real quick before the movie ends. Fun fact here for you guys. The ending theme to the Phantom Menace is the Emperor's theme in minor or major, whatever the opposite of the actual.
That would be in major, Michael.
Okay, thank you for my music inclined friend here. That it foreshadows his control of the galaxy, but it's hidden behind children singing. So it's really crazy that John Williams was able to put such an ominous Easter egg.
That's pretty cool, man. I gotta be honest. That's very cool. I was trying to, because you had told me that right before that part came up. I was trying to like match it in my head tonally. It was pretty tough, but I believe you. I'm sure I'll probably
go YouTube,
spend some time with
some
that.
tracks and to take a look at it, and then
and then if you play it backwards, it actually syncs up with the Wizard of Oz. No, that's Dark Side of the Moon. I'm sorry.
All right, have we hit the end?
We are done with the recap, pal.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I was feeling it, man. You could have kept going.
Well, that's how every movie ends. So,
all right, Mike. That was the Phantom Menace, man. We got a little personal touch we want to put on it, though. I think. Real quick.
For sure. Okay, first off, before we dive in, and if we completely obliterate some characters that has nothing to say about the actors who portray them, Ahmed Best as Jar Jar is a phenomenal man. Jake Lloyd did his best. You know, these people don't deserve any more hate whatsoever.
Yeah, it's been like 20 years, man. Let them live.
I really want to preface that. I mean, it's just like these guys are doing their job. I know Ahmed Best has gone on record saying that he put a lot of himself into Jar Jar, and it's just really unfortunate people reacted so negatively.
Yeah.
When I feel like anytime you show a kid the movie, they love.
Probably that was true for me, but obviously looking back, he's a pretty bad. He's like the most, I think, universally hated Star Wars character.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because to me, like 3PO is kind of like the same. I guess I just don't have like this like people like really hate him, and honestly, for a period of time, it was really popular to hate on the prequels, which I think is really funny because they actually end up. I think I like the prequel trilogy the most, just because the context of the Clone Wars puts in it. Yeah, you can keep doing that if you want.
Yeah, I just like that noise. I like that noise.
It's fine. I have an opinion. I'm allowed to have it.
All right, Mike. We got a little. What is this? A little fast five here. Not furious.
So I actually challenged you to pick out 5 things from this movie you actually love.
I think we should alternate on this one because I don't know that there are 10 total different things that we could. I'm gonna have to
check mine off because I'm sure we have a couple that are the same. So, do you want me to go first or second?
You tee it off, my friend. All right,
man. My number 1 was things I love about this movie is I fucking love the pod race, dude.
You son of a bitch.
Was that your number?
That was
1
through 5 for me. Now I'm just kidding.
I mean,
let's talk about it, Mike.
Yeah. So the pod race is just—it's so fun. You have all these crazy characters. The announcers are fucking insane. They bring there's this level of fun to it. You know, Jake Lloyd doesn't talk a lot, so you don't have to worry about that.
He is the only one you point out that does not say anything during the race.
Every single pod racer has a lot.
Every other one also makes a funny sound before they die. Before they die a flaming, painful death. Yeah, that's true, man. The pod race was awesome. It was awesome.
It's really cool. I mean, it's something where it's like it allowed, like I said, it's a smorgasbord of Star Wars lore, and it's all packed into I don't know, like less than a half hour, maybe like 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it really was. There's a lot of nothing that happens around it, so it was cool to have like an action sequence to grab your attention that lasted and was legitimately entertaining for a half hour or however long it was.
All right, give me your number 2 here.
So that was on my list as well, more so for the Nintendo 64 video game that came from it. I made a side of that.
No shame.
So that was on my list. Darth Maul is on my list.
Darth Maul's on my list too.
Because like I said, I mean, he's like he's not much of a character, but he is just like a cool bad guy, and that's really all you kind of need in this movie.
That's what you need from him. He's a hand of the Emperor who he's finding cutting off. Maul's character gets really like dived into in the Clone Wars. Spoiler alert: he actually does not die here.
He does not die.
I highly recommend if you really like Darth Maul as a character. The voice actor Sam Witwer, who plays Starkiller in the Force Unleashed video games, does a phenomenal job. He has roles in Clone Wars and maybe some other content. that being Rebels, I'm just going to throw it out there for people. If you really like the character, go find these stories because they're worth watching. I promise you.
Good stuff, man. All right, what else you got?
I put Qui-Gon on my list. Liam Neeson does a great job portraying what I think the Jedi should be.
He's kind of a rebel.
Yeah, but in a lot of ways, he is like the example of like all the Jedi are like, it's like they're politicized in the prequel trilogy, and I feel like he's someone who still understands like what it means to be, compassionate and exemplify how the Jedi should act, how they should be taking care of and doing justice.
They have this very rigid code that they follow that's pretty cut and dry, and it leaves no room for like human emotion, which Qui-Gon shows a knack for.
Yeah.
Which makes him interesting.
It makes him incredibly interesting. I think it's actually one of the things where it's like, oh, this becomes Anakin's struggle too.
Right. I mean, that you nailed it. More so than any of the other Jedi, he has like human qualities, where the others are just kind of cardboard upholders of this Jedi code that they have.
Right. That even some of them don't even follow as strictly as they claim. They chastise other people for not being like this, but they very rarely follow it themselves.
Nerds. I also have the Jedi Council. I talked about that a little bit earlier.
They're not on my list, but
I just thought it was cool because in the original trilogy that we grew up with, there's like two rogue Jedi like in the universe. You get to see like what an organized what's the word I'm looking for? Institution that it was in the old, like in the before time.
Right, before the Empire.
Right. So it was cool just to get a look at that. I would love to see, it's probably very boring, like a full council meeting. It's probably fucking lame. It's probably like a city council meeting. It's just lame. But it was cool to see them in their kind of like more like monk type role. Right. Also, it was cool to watch them battle people in the other two movies. So,
it's a little cooler than them sitting on chairs the whole time.
Absolutely. Some lazy boys.
Another one on my list, which we talked about at length, was the Duel of Fates. I don't know how you cannot love this part of the movie. The score by John Williams, titled The Duel of Fates, it's amazing. It might be my favorite.
I sing in the shower.
You should.
And then my roommates get concerned and ask if I'm okay.
And the answer is no. No, he's not.
No,
okay.
I'm sitting down crying
Singing
again.
Fates, do I look okay?
It's 6 p.m. Why am I showering now? True. Yeah, the Duel of Fates, everything about it was excellent. I also have the introduction of CGI into the Star Wars universe. It's like a double-edged sword. Like a lot of people get too dependent on CGI in movies, where it just kind of looks dumb. But there was a lot of. I mean, this is the first time we saw it. You pointed out while we were watching it, the Naboo battle scene is entirely in CGI.
Which is, I don't know how I'd never made this realization until today. They do a crazy good job of making it feel real, even though it's on a Windows 98 background.
It's not. This is something that wouldn't be possible if CGI wasn't invented.
No, you have Jurassic Park, and then you have this. The pioneered technology made throughout this trilogy has shaped movies. Whether you like this movie or not, you have to appreciate what it did for cinema.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. Obviously, it didn't work out exactly how it was intended, but I think the ambition in this movie was very tangible, and the use of CGI. And I guess I could expand that more broadly into just the use of new kind of technological tools in the Star Wars universe was really cool to watch in this movie.
Yeah, it's funny, speaking of CGI, this is the only prequel movie that really makes a lot of use of practical miniature effects that the original trilogy had, and it has more miniatures in it than any other Star Wars film, which is interesting because, it looks so, when you go back and watch episodes 1, 2, and 3, there's so much CGI that you feel like, oh, none of this is real. But all the pods, everything there, like that was all miniatures. The crowd, they're filming sections of it, but when you like zoom out, that pan out shot of the track on Tatooine where you see the crowd, that's miniatures.
Probably
They
took
built that.
so long.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I love behind the scenes stuff, and that right there is just
Yeah.
you know, it's honestly like beautiful.
I don't have focus to do any of that. That's madness.
As
I
an
love it.
artist, I have some sort of attention span.
Yeah,
but
there
I
you go.
also just have to like dive into it. I'm sure that's how they feel when they're doing it as well.
There you go.
My last thing on my list is actually a quote. It's when they're in the beginning of the movie when Qui-Gon's trying to break through the door with his lightsaber. One of the Kid-Nemoidians goes, "They're still coming through."
You can hear the terror
Yeah.
in that fake alien.
I know this is kind of a comedic thing, but my life was changed by that line. And I've said it so many times to friends, to my brother. It's just like,
Wow.
It's just a favorite of mine. It's
Good
super
stuff, man.
funny to me, but yeah.
Good stuff. I also have a quote for my last one.
Oh, please tell me.
That's so wizard, Annie.
Oh my God, how have we gone? I don't know. I think we're at like 45 minutes and we haven't talked about Kitster once.
That's so wizard.
It's so wizard.
Which was just such a fleeting, stupid throwaway line. But when Anakin's friends are hanging out with him while he's cleaning up his pod racer, the Kitster, his only true friend, said, "Annie, that's so wizard."
So
The
wizard.
lamest thing.
How come nobody says wizard anymore?
I want to start saying that,
I
but
will too.
no one will understand except you. So I don't know, man. Those are 5 things that I really enjoyed. It was a little bit of, there are a couple in there that are obviously a bit of a stretch, but
Right.
it's tough to find individual things to really enjoy.
Yeah. So I have
But-
to ask you, is there anything that you like really caught this time around that you didn't in previous watches?
I kind of understood the
The
blockade
plot.
thing. It took me almost 30 years of my life,
Oh, so you discovered the plot. I'm really proud.
but I think I finally kind of understand the movie. I don't know, you?
I noticed that Qui-Gon uses his Jedi mind trick on Boss Nass. I
Yeah,
never
man.
really noticed that any other time I watched. And the fact that it suddenly dawned on me that the Gungans versus the droids was all CGI.
Well, that is a big discovery. You
Yeah.
probably should have went with that one.
I should have
And,
known that.
and we can
I'm
edit
sure there
that
was
out.
some mocap in there, but still, it's like
Yeah.
it's still computer
It's
generated.
pretty incredible, man.
I have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
I mean, how significant do you find this aspect of the Skywalker saga? Like, how important is it in the grand scheme of things?
It all starts here, man.
I know it
You
does
know,
lay the
It's
groundwork.
the foundation. They revisit Tatooine, which is where the whole thing begins in A New Hope. So you get to see that. They talk about how it's just a kind of a shithole.
Yeah, you know what I kind of
Get to
equate it
see
to?
that.
You ever have like a TV show that you watched and it doesn't really get good until like the 3rd season, and you're like, no, just stick around for like the first 2 seasons
Yeah.
because the payoff is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, this is both of the first 2 seasons.
Yeah,
It's tough, man. But
I mean,
it's-
even
it's-
Attack of the Clones just has things in it that I'm just get so like I get my nerd boners for.
yeah.
But it's another movie that people just don't happen to like very much. But this
Yeah.
one is just
This one's pretty much mostly hated.
yeah. I love
Why
I love
is
the
that,
lore
Mike?
that's introduced. You know, it's really funny. I don't know, man. Like there's lots of things about this movie that I love, but we just rewatched it, and I'm just like I could go. I regurgitate and rewatch Star Wars constantly, and this is something that I feel like I could do without for maybe like a month or two.
I wrote down one word under the question, why do people hate this movie so much?
Is it Jar Jar?
No. It's all right, I'll just tell you. Midichlorians.
I'm surprised we haven't brought this up. yet.
It's just the most nonsense. They decided to try to make the Force like some biological,
Scientific type
like
thing.
scientific. Like nobody gives a fuck about that,
The
man.
atheist in me is like, yeah, cool. The moviegoer in me is like, wow, that takes away a lot of the mystery and
that
destiny of these characters.
kind of ruins the charm of it.
Yeah.
Like it's
No,
like it's like being born 6'5".
Yeah.
Like it just kind of happens to you.
No, and it's crazy. They're like, there's the obviously like religious motifs in this film. Anakin's very much a Christ figure, which is great for storytelling.
Sure.
I think it really lends to his character because it's like, well, did you ever wonder what would happen if Jesus was like, fuck this, I'm gonna kill people? That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
But in the original trilogy, you have very much this sense of like, oh, well, you know what? Like, if I believe in myself, I can do these things, or like anybody can be a hero, and that's echoed in the sequel trilogy all these years later. I think specifically because when you go back and you look at the prequels, well, what mistakes did they make? I think this is one of them, where you try and make midichlorians like you said, it's like being born 6'5". It's like predetermined.
Your explanation, I think, is really good of the whole kind of Christ-like approach to it. Takes on like a mythical feel to it, and the midichlorians is just like an unnecessary explanation of that. It totally undercuts that.
Honestly, if I could, I'd love to speak with George about it for like 6 hours just to know where he's coming from.
George, where are you at, dog?
Yeah, I just want to know like what, like really deeply, like what did you have in mind here?
Oh, whatever did midichlorians.
That's what George Lucas doesn't sound like at all. But yeah, that like the midichlorian count. Like, is it like a calorie? Is it something that you can't see? It's just there. I don't know. I did lie. I had a couple other things jotted down. Another reason, I think it was just the expectations for this movie were impossible.
Oh yeah.
Return of the Jedi, you're gonna have to help me here, came out in 1983. So we're talking 16-year gap in between movies.
Yeah, people thought they weren't going to get Star Wars again.
People thought this is, like we said at the top of the show, this is one of the most anticipated films probably ever.
Yeah.
It's probably right up there with The Godfather 3.
Yeah, we're talking about a movie that was like a blockbuster before it was even seen, and it just did not live up to what people had in mind.
It didn't. It was just between the plot being, like I said earlier, like I've just now kind of grasped it out. I'm kind of dumb, but I don't think a lot of people care about this Trade Federation angle. Like you said, there's a lot going on at the end. There's a lot of, throughout the prequels, they kind of suffer from very stiff kind of acting.
Yeah.
The characters in this movie just kind of were not very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Liam Neeson does a really good job of being like, I think he was experienced enough at this point in time where he could deliver the lines, and who knows, maybe he was making a little bit of tweaks here and there, but made them more easily digestible to the audience. However, as time goes on, it doesn't seem like Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, even Samuel L. Jackson, like they're not making like those creative decisions. At that point, George is like this huge icon. He's the guy who created Star Wars. Nobody's questioning him. And then I've seen interviews with Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, and they're like, George, you can write this stuff, but you can't say it. And there's a lot of things in there where it's like
everything that Luke says in A New Hope. It's like people don't talk like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think these prequel movies all suffer from that a little bit, but this one especially just kind of. I think a lot of it is to do with the otherworldly expectations that they had to make A New Hope basically again.
For sure. I mean, obviously we were 6 at the time, but I'm sure you and I we've seen things that just of people just like getting ready for this stuff. Like people were like, oh yeah, I camped outside here. Like I started 3 days ago just to see this movie, like opening night.
I can't imagine doing that in 2020.
No.
I'm sure you could find a legal stream to watch somewhere. That was those were the times. So I do have one more very important note that we have to talk about.
Let's do it.
I was very uncomfortable with Padme and Anakin's flirting in this movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if you just aged Anakin up just a little
I
bit.
guess we will talk about this more in the next movie.
For sure.
But
it's a 5-year gap, but the actor,
which currently, we'll say I'm dating someone in their early 30s. That's not weird.
No.
If I'm like 8,
yeah. No, it's weird at younger ages, and the actor age difference at the time I think was.
Yeah.
I think Jake Lloyd might have been like 10, or maybe 11, 12, and Natalie Portman was 18.
Yeah.
So it's like even if Jake is 12, Natalie Portman's 6 years older, which is larger gap.
I don't know what the Galactic Republic's stance on that, but in the United States of America,
That's statutory rape.
That's no go, man, my friend. Not good. So that is the Phantom Menace. Lasting thoughts, Mike?
Hey, man, I think we should maybe like give it a rating. Maybe like 2 Sarlacc pits out of 5.
2 Sarlacc pits. We're gonna rate pits.
Yeah.
I think two is fair.
2 is fair
comparatively to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys, we'll definitely.
I don't want to give it a 1.
No, I'm trying to give it its fair.
I want to
shake.
save that for episode 9.
Get out of here.
I'll go with a 2.
Yeah, 2 out of 5 Sarlacc pits.
And then what we'll do when we run through the 9 sagas, we'll do a 1 to 9 rating of everything at the very end.
I think that in this Skywalker saga rewatch, we're not going to hit Rogue One or Solo. Don't get me wrong, we're definitely planning on covering that at some point, but we did want to start off with this just so you guys can get to know us a little better.
Yes, and our stances on inappropriate statutory rape relationships.
Exactly, which is I think a pretty heavy
we're going to put a firm
us.
no from the sponsor on that one.
Yeah.
It's brought to you by Tashi Station.
Get your power converters here.
Love it.
Or there. Just go to Tashi Station.
I was going to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. What a loser.
You have to be whiny about it, otherwise you're not getting it.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you watching that movie with me and then talking about it. It was a good time, my friend.
Real quick, before we go, I think we're planning on having guests at some point, friends, family, who knows? If we,
Nemesis.
I would
Padawans.
love to talk with my enemies about Star Wars.
Bounty hunters.
Yeah. So I got 4 fan questions for you. I think we should ask all our new guests this, but I'm going to ask you today.
Let them rip.
All right. What is your favorite aspect of the Star Wars universe?
So unprepared.
Like,
oh, Lord.
Jedi, Sith, scum, villainy, what's...
I think I would have to say probably the wealth of just the mass universe that they've created through 9, main main saga movies and all the spinoffs and video games and everything. It's just such an expansive universe that plays off of so many different themes. Like you got kind of like a Wild West element to it. You have like a whole what's the word I'm looking for?
Modern mythology.
Like modern mythology. You have just kind of like the ninja aspect. It just mixes so many different. It blends together so many different categories of lore and characters and everything, and
like
just makes
themes
it
of history.
Yeah, exactly.
Religion.
And it just does it so well, and the original trilogy especially comes down to it's the whole one man versus evil thing that they do so well. Again and again and again, they do the same thing. But it's just that, and there's still even though the Skywalker saga is done until they realize they can make $1 billion more on it, they could go into the future, they could go in the past. There's still so much from both canon and non-canon source material that they could go on. It's awesome. I'll watch pretty much anything.
All right, next question. What is your earliest Star Wars memory?
Earliest Star Wars memory is being homesick from school one day, and I think I just randomly threw on Empire, and it was the very beginning when they had the Hoth battle, and I was like, this is cool as shit. I remember walking around pretending to be an AT-AT. That whole movie is... I'll defend that. I don't have to defend that movie, but I'll watch that movie dearly until I die.
Would you say it's a Desert Island movie?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely for me.
And then who's your favorite character?
Han Solo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I love...
I'm shocked you didn't say Clone Commando Boss, but... I can
I just didn't know if that was going to track for anyone.
I don't care. Bring it in here. There's lots of people who... Their avenue into Star Wars are the video games.
Definitely Han Solo. He's like a rebel of rebels. He's a lone wolf, unless you count Chewbacca. I have always had an affinity more so for villains, and he's kind of like, at least when you meet him, he's kind of like a gray area. Like, he's not a good guy. He's not really a villain, but Han Solo is the man. He's just
Scoundrel.
He's a scoundrel. He's a nerf herder.
And what is your favorite piece of Star Wars content? Is it a movie, video game, TV show, comic book, novel?
It's probably Knights of the Old Republic.
The video game?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
If anyone listening's ever played that, it's an old game now. It's probably came out like 2002 or 3. But the story in that game is amazing.
Yeah.
I've sunk a lot of time into that.
It's just, I think it's one of the first times where like you really felt like you could immerse yourself in Star Wars, or at least for our generation. I know there was like an old MMO, Star Wars Galaxies, but I don't even know if that came out before or after.
Yeah, I like that game gives you a free pass basically just to be as evil as possible with no real world consequences. Like, it's shocking. Like, the dialogue options obviously affect like your light side dark side score, and I remember I don't think I could do this now as like I try to be a good person in the real world, but when I was a kid you would go to like, this woman was like begging you to buy this like one item off of her to like, her husband was dead and she needed the credits for her family, and I just remember being like, no, also give me that or I'll kill you. It's like the most heinously evil acts you could do in that game. It was a blast, man. These are good questions though. I think we'll really we'll get to know some people on this show.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear all sorts of different
We'll
answers.
ask you maybe next week.
Yeah, well,
we'll squeeze that in.
I'm going to tease some future content here.
Tease
the
it.
next episode is going to be our chronological rewatch of Attack of the Clones.
Die Hard.
Oh,
We're doing Star Wars again.
that's what this is a Star Wars podcast.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'm still in.
All right, so we'll see you guys next episode.
See you next time, people.